Oh man, dude, it's so fucking late. I'm recording this shit. Anyways, I know I've been fucking missing the shit that's like right in front of me right now. Um, like I said in the previous video, I had like a lot of shit going on. Like fucking work, just kicking my ass. I'm also trying to find another job right now. I need more money. But besides the fact, yeah, I know there's a lot of shit that just started. More information started coming up from India, so I wanted to take a look what's been going on. Let's go right into it.
On May 10th, India did
Oh, fuck.
something it's never done before. It used brahmos missiles, one of the fastest and newest cruise missiles in the world, in a live combat mission.
Oh, shit.
This wasn't a test or a show of force. This was war, with real targets, real explosions, and real human consequences.
This is the real deal.
This operation was called Operation Sindoor. And it wasn't a single mission or only one target. It was a reckoning, a large, coordinated strike carried out by the Indian Air Force aimed at some of the most dangerous terrorist camps across the border in Pakistan. The strikes took place in the early morning hours of May 10th, 2025. And by the time the sun came up, at least 4 high-value targets were on fire. This all started back on April 22nd, when a brutal terror attack hit Pahalgam, in the Indian region of Jammu and Kashmir. It happened at a market. There were families shopping, kids running between stalls, and people buying bread and fruit. 26 people were killed. The group believed to be behind the attack was Jaish-e-Mohammed, a Pakistan-based terrorist group with a long history of violence against India. India promised a response, and the response was devastation. The targeted bases include Rafiki, Murid, Nur Khan, Rahim Yar Khan, Sukur, and Chunian. Additional damage was reported on Skardu.
Dude, that's one thing that I don't understand about. Like, dude, it's like I don't understand what these fucking terrorists be going through their mind, dude. Do you just think that because you kill like 20, because you kill like 50 people, you think that's gonna do anything? That's literally not gonna do anything. That's literally just gonna get your entire nation bombed, because we already know that your nation is gonna fucking harbor you, just like how they did with Osama bin Laden. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like they know what they're doing, dude. Like at a certain point, I don't even think these terrorists actually hate the people who they say that they hate. I think the terrorists actually be hating their own people. Because you already know what's gonna happen. Like, you attack these people, you're gonna kill like what, 10, maybe like 50 people. And then, you're gonna and you're gonna fucking ride and hide in Pakistan, and then you're just gonna get that entire nation bombed and potentially start a war. It's like, I don't know. You do all this shit just to kill like 10 people, and in return you have to sacrifice like fucking like what, like thousands of people. Cause now you guys have like an actual fucking good
and
army.
Sargodha airfields. Radar sites at Pasur and Sialkot
Like,
were
why,
also hit.
dude?
These were carefully selected military targets based on credible intelligence.
But the trade-off is not.
Now, this video is definitely not advertiser-friendly according to the YouTube algorithm, and this is why we need your help. YouTube has a habit of restricting videos that talk about war, but this is the reality of the world we live in. So, if you can do us a big favor and hit that like and subscribe button down below, it helps the video out tremendously. We appreciate you. India made it clear that the strikes were aimed only at military and terrorist infrastructure, not civilians, not the Pakistani government.
I don't know if these terrorists just like assume that the social media doesn't exist, the internet doesn't exist. That they're just gonna do some terrorist action, get the rival nation to attack them, and then when they attack them, it's like, oh look, the big nation, they're attacking us. It's like they want war and blah blah blah, like trying to get all this pity and shit. It's like, dude, it's not gonna work, man. It's not gonna work. You're gonna swindle us, yo.
And not random villages. The first missile was launched from a Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter jet, a twin-engine Indian aircraft capable of carrying heavy payloads deep into enemy airspace. The plane took off under the cover of night. It flew low to avoid radar. Then, just outside the Pakistani border, the pilot hit the pickle button, and the BrahMos missile was released.
What the fuck is that?
The Stage 2 missile dropped like a stone for a second, then caught the air, kicked on its ramjet, and shot forward at nearly Mach 3. It flew low and fast, hugging the terrain to be virtually invisible, and then curved towards Bahawalpur. This is where Jaish-e-Mohammed had its airbase. And it's not just some dusty camp. It's a massive complex. Barracks, training grounds, administration offices, weapons caches, and reportedly a communications hub for cross-border terror operations like we saw on April 22nd. India has been tracking the location for years, and on May 10th, it went up in flames. According to eyewitnesses on the ground, some of whom posted shaky cell phone footage before the cell service was cut, the explosion was massive. It flattened part of the complex and started fires that took hours to contain. Pakistani sources put the death toll at over 50, and Indian intelligence sources say multiple senior operatives were believed to be present during the strike. At the same time, another brahmos missile was in the air, this one heading for Marikhe. That's the known base of Lashkar-e-Taiba, the terrorist group responsible for the 2008 Mumbai attacks and dozens of other violent attacks. This missile targeted a facility believed to be a training site, complete with tunnels, firing ranges, and
Day of reckoning shall
the explosion
soon
hit
come.
right at the heart of the camp. Some reports say the shockwave collapsed parts of the underground area. Two more targets were hit using other weapon systems, like a combination of Indian-made Crystal Maze 2 missiles, hammer-guided munitions, Scalp cruise missiles, and Spice 2000 smart bombs. These were used for medium-range precision strikes on locations that didn't require the speed or range of brahmos. But brahmos got the headline, because brahmos has never been used before. This was its first time in war. Now, let's get into brahmos. Beginning development in 2001 and deployed with all branches.
It actually sounds pretty cool, brahmos.
India had held the brahmos as a kind of ace up its sleeve. It displays in parades, it was fired in tests, it was discussed in defense forums, but it had never been pulled out for an actual combat mission until now. And what a powerful reveal. They used it deep inside of enemy territory. That changes the story. That's not just a technical success, that's a strategic message. And Pakistan has no response. The entire operation was
that basically shows that not only do they have the capabilities of like acquiring or making new and sophisticated weapons, but they also have the knowledge to apply them in the battlefield and how to do like cool strategies with them. Well, not cool, but you know how to do smart strategies with them and how to apply them on the battlefield, which is fucking pretty advanced, yo. Good shit to fucking India, dude. So what I mean, dude, you fuck around and you find out. Oh man, I'm supposed to stop cursing so much.
The brahmos jets were in the air, drone jammers were activated, radar countermeasures were deployed, satellite assets were redirected to monitor the strike area in real time, anti-air threats were tracked. Indian forces used the Akash missile defense system to guard against retaliation. Every part of the operation was designed not just to succeed, but to show that India could do this again and again and again if necessary. And it all worked, with domestically produced equipment. One Indian official described it as a proof of concept for total precision warfare, using our own tools on our own terms.
Yeah,
that's important.
they get to, they're the ones
India
who
has
decide
been pushing
now.
For self-reliance and defense.
They get to control the
What it calls
battlefield.
A self-sufficient Bharat. That means building, launching, and using Indian-made weapons, not borrowing technology or buying parts, not depending or waiting for permission. And in this operation, the brahmos wasn't the only indigenous system to be in play. India also used anti-drone tech, signal disruptors, and long-range infrared targeting designed and built in Indian labs. Prahlada Ramarao, the developer of the Akash missile defense system, said it brought tears to his eyes when he saw his system in action, protecting people. Meanwhile, back in now,
cool.
Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh had just cut the ribbon on the new brahmos production facility days before the strike. The factory is meant to ramp up production to supply not just the Indian military, but export customers, like the Philippines, Vietnam, and potentially Indonesia. The timing couldn't have been more symbolic. Missiles made in India, fired successfully in combat, and the strike resounds around the world. It hit its mark.
No Timu weapons,
politically,
you know?
This wasn't subtle. In the hours following the strike, Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a televised statement. He didn't name Pakistan. He didn't have to. But he did say one thing loud and clear, that India will not be held hostage to nuclear blackmail anymore. That's a loaded sentence.
You do not negotiate with terrorists, dude. You give them an inch, they'll want the whole fucking mile.
For decades, Pakistan has operated under a nuclear umbrella. It's said openly and repeatedly that any large-scale Indian attack could trigger a nuclear response. But India is done blinking. They launched the strike and made it sting. And Pakistan's response? Nothing. Just more drones and rockets over the border, like usual. And now they've entered into a shaky ceasefire, and hopefully the fighting stops. Of course, state-sponsored terrorist groups don't necessarily follow ceasefires. But India's enemies now have to deal with them. Brahmos is not just a threat. It's a weapon that works, and a weapon that gets used. So let's break down the weapon itself. Brahmos isn't just fast, it's brutal. And what makes it so terrifying isn't just the speed. It's the fact that now we know it works. in real war, under pressure, with no second chances. How does it work? And why are the militaries around the world suddenly paying attention?
Brahmos.
Well, first, brahmos is a cruise missile, not a ballistic missile. That means it doesn't fly high into space and come
Don't get
crashing back
religious.
down to Earth like a rock. It flies within the atmosphere, using wings and fins and air pressure, staying low to the ground, hugging the Earth like a hawk in a combat dive. It's not flying at you as much as it's
That's
flying
pretty
under
cool.
your radar. At its core, brahmos is a two-stage missile. The first stage is a solid fuel booster. That's what kicks it into the air when it's launched and gives brahmos the initial burst of speed and altitude. When the second stage takes over, a ramjet engine that breathes air from the atmosphere and compresses it using the missile's own motion. That means brahmos doesn't need to carry both fuel and an oxidizer like a rocket.
Damn.
It just needs the initial burst of speed and air to breathe. Once it's up and running, that engine propels the missile at
Dude,
speeds
that's
of
pretty
around
badass.
Mach 3. That's about 1 kilometer per second. For comparison, a Tomahawk cruise missile used by the US travels at Mach 0.75, less than a quarter of the speed of the Indian missile. And it's more than an interesting statistic. It's modern warfare. Speed kills. It gives the enemy less
Yeah.
time to react, less time to shoot it down, less time to warn
100%.
anyone. If brahmos is coming, you've got a very immediate problem. Seconds, maybe less. And if you're in a warship, a command center, or an underground
You're-
base,
you're
seconds are not
cooked.
enough. The missile would take
You've been turned
approximately
into
8 minutes
sashimi.
to cover its
Tartar sauce,
500
fist
kilometer
paste.
range. And range is
Tartar
another interesting
sauce.
point. Let's talk about range. For a long time, brahmos was limited to 290 kilometers,
Oh, they
just under
increased the
200
range
miles.
as well. That's pretty
That's because of the
impressive.
Missile Technology Control Regime, or MTCR, an international agreement that limited export missiles to a 300-kilometer range. But when India joined the MTCR in 2016, the restriction was lifted. Now brahmos is reaching 500 kilometers. Some versions may soon push past 800. And if you're watching closely, there's talk of a future brahmos variant that could hit 1,500 kilometers, or
Oh,
nearly
man.
1,000 miles,
A
putting
super
Chinese
missile?
targets like Chengdu or even Beijing in range. You don't need a fleet of bombers if you have a missile that can go thousands of miles and hit its targets within minutes. You don't need a warning. You just need to push a button and watch if you choose to. However, as a fire and forget weapon, even that is optional. Now for the warhead. brahmos isn't nuclear, at least none of the current versions are. It's a conventional weapon, but that doesn't mean it's weak. The missile can carry a 200 to 300 kilogram warhead, depending on the
Holy
version.
crap.
That's enough to
A
sink a
warhead?
destroyer-class ship, flatten a building, punch through a bunker, or wipe out a terrorist base the size of a football field. And this
I mean,
thing is
actually,
really smart for a weapon.
not that big.
brahmos has an onboard
Football
guidance system
field?
that uses inertial navigation, GPS, and active radar homing. That means it knows where it is, knows where you are, and can adjust mid-flight
So,
if you
long
move.
story short, in layman's terms,
The
you can't
final
fucking
approach is
escape
probably
this
the
thing.
most interesting thing about the brahmos shows. It goes into a terminal maneuver by zigzagging side to side, jinking around just enough to throw off missile defense systems.
So this thing is basically like a freaking like a super missile, like a super baby missile, like a super like a super missile, heat-seeking Nova super missile.
Before locking in, gaining altitude, and striking center mass. brahmos is a universal missile, and that's not just a marketing term, it's a tactical reality. You can launch it from a truck, like a land-based mobile launcher,
Oh,
a ship,
yeah,
a
you're
vertical
cooked.
launch system, a submarine, an underwater
cooked.
tube launch, a jet like the Su-30 MKI, and that makes it hard to predict. If you're defending against brahmos, you don't just need to watch the skies. You need to watch everything. You need
Even
satellites,
below.
radar, sonar, human intelligence, and luck. Because if you miss the launch, you only have minutes to wait for the explosions. The version India used in Operation Sindoor was the air-launched brahmos A, fired from an Su-30 MKI fighter jet. That's one of the more advanced variants. The Su-30 had to be specifically modified to carry the missile, because brahmos is absolutely massive. About 8.4 meters long and weighing over 2,500 kilograms.
Oh man.
Picture a Ford F-150
is
with a bed full of
freaking
bricks.
huge.
When launched from an aircraft, brahmos can fly longer, faster, and stealthier. This plane gives it an extra altitude and forward velocity. It allows India to launch the missile without having to bring a launcher within range.
Yeah, a
It
launch
also
pad. I'm
complicates
needing one.
defense, because now brahmos isn't just a ground-launched weapon. It's a highly mobile, highly portable air shark. There's also a ship-launched version used by the Indian Navy. It's been deployed on destroyers like the INS Kolkata, INS Vishakhapatnam, and other frontline vessels. These ships can fire brahmos in salvos, multiple missiles at once, to overwhelm enemy defenses. If one gets shot down, 2 more are coming right behind it. There's even a submarine-launched brahmos,
dude,
which
this is
means
like
the
modern
Indian Navy
warfare.
could hit you without ever showing you the launch. It just comes out of the water, and then it's coming straight at you at Mach 3. Now, the real future of brahmos is even more terrifying. It's something called the brahmos 2. That's the hypersonic version. Hypersonic means Mach 5 and above. That's
Mach
5
5?
times the speed of sound. That's a mile every second. That's faster than most radar systems can track, and faster than any current air defense system
Imagine
can
you take
intercept.
a step and you
Although there
fucking
is
go
a
mile.
Japanese railgun currently under development that looks compelling. The goal for brahmos 2 is
What, the
Mach 7,
Transformers
nearly
type of deal?
8,600 kilometers per hour. For comparison, that's over twice as fast as a rifle bullet, and almost 10 times faster than a commercial jet. brahmos 2 isn't here yet, it's still being developed, but the day it arrives, it will instantly become likely the fastest operational weapon in the world. And India will be one of the few
man.
countries to have it. Right now, only
That's pretty
Russia,
impressive.
China,
I would
and
trust
possibly the
India
US have
with it.
hypersonic weapons in testing or
They've
limited
shown
use.
restraint.
But none of them are exporting them. None of them are this close to deployment. And unlike systems in development, brahmos isn't a sketch or a whiteboard project. It's real. It's flying.
It's
being
real and
sold
it's here,
globally.
boys.
And now it's being used against Pakistan.
Get your hands on it.
That's why Operation Sindoor was so important, because it proved that brahmos can perform under real pressure. It's easy to hit a dummy target in a desert during a calm day. It's a lot harder to drop a missile into a live, defended facility in the middle of a region on high alert, with electronic jamming, enemy radar, bad weather, and political stakes through the roof. But India did it several times in a single day, and now it's a lot more than a missile. It's a sales pitch. And it's a warning.
It's a sales pitch.
It's a reputation. Any country thinking about buying it just watched it work perfectly in an integrated system of Indian technology.
Mission
And any
successful,
enemy thinking
yeah.
about testing
Right
India
on the nail.
just saw what happens when you go too far. For most of its modern history, India's military
pushed
posture was
India to the
defined by
edge.
caution. It waited, it warned, it absorbed first strikes and fought back only when there was no other option. And when it did strike, it tried to do so quietly under the radar without shaking the global order too much. But that posture has clearly changed. Under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, India has grown more assertive, more visible, and more willing to take risks. It's not reckless, but it's not shy either, and Operation Sindoor just proved the concept. When Modi came to power in 2014, he brought with him the language of nationalist strength. India, he said, should no longer apologize for defending itself.
Yeah, it
It
shouldn't.
should no longer fear
Nobody should ever
escalation every
apologize
time
for
it is
defending
attacked.
itself.
And most of all, it should not let terrorism hide behind nuclear threats.
Yeah, like what?
That was the
what?
message after Pulwama in 2019, when a Pakistani-based terror group killed 40 Indian military personnel in a suicide bombing. India responded with airstrikes in Balakot, deep inside of Pakistani territory. At the time, that was already a big step. It was the first time in decades that India had conducted overt cross-border airstrikes without trying to downplay their hand. But even then, India didn't use its top-tier weapons. But now they have. With Operation Sindoor, India went further than Balakot. It used brahmos, its fastest cruise missile. It struck multiple sites. It did so in coordination with other high-end munitions. And it did it without even blinking, even under the shadow of Pakistan's nuclear arsenal. That was Modi's political and military doctrine in action. Modi's government has made
He's
it
not
clear.
messing around
if you strike
anymore.
India
He's laying
with
down the
terror,
hammer.
India will strike you
Bring
with
down the
precision.
gauntlet, the
It
Uber
won't
ban
wait
a
or
hammer.
ask for permission, and it certainly
You're gonna get
won't
struck down.
apologize. That
Get
message goes
slain.
well at home. Modi's base, nationalist, hawkish, proud of India's growing power, saw the strike not just as a retaliation, but as regional leadership, as proof that India doesn't have to play second fiddle to anyone.
Yeah, you shouldn't
that
fiddle
it
the
has
diddle
its
to
own
anyone.
missiles and the right to launch them at aggressors.
They should be fiddling your
India's
diddle.
geography is tough. It shares borders with two nuclear-armed rivals, both of whom have fought wars with it. Pakistan to the west, with a track record of sponsoring non-state terrorist groups. China to the north, with disputed borders, a massive military, and a growing regional footprint. So how does a country like India defend itself without triggering a nuclear war? That's where the real doctrine comes in. India officially maintains a no first-use nuclear policy. That means it will never launch nuclear weapons first, but it
Yeah, we
will
can't say the same
respond
thing
to a
about
nuclear
Pakistan.
attack. It also means India has to win conventional conflicts without relying on nukes. That's a narrow space to operate in. So India developed a strategy called Cold Start. The idea behind Cold Start is to
Cold
strike
Start.
fast, hard, and conventionally to respond to a provocation with limited but decisive force before Pakistan or anyone else can escalate to the nuclear level. Instead of mobilizing for weeks like in the old days, Cold Start
No,
allowed
even
Indian
saying
forces
the
to act
nuclear
within
level is
hours,
actually crazy.
to launch airstrikes, cross the border, destroy specific military or terrorist targets, and then stop before the situation spirals into total war. But Cold Start only works if India has the tools to make it happen. That's what brahmos is for. A missile like brahmos is perfect for Cold Start. It's fast, it's precise, It doesn't carry a nuclear warhead, so it doesn't automatically trigger escalation, but it hits hard enough that no one could ignore it. You don't need to send in troops and tanks and trucks. You don't need to wait for weeks for international support.
Not everything has to have the biggest boom.
You just fire. And that's exactly what India did. The missiles used in Operation Sindoor weren't symbolic. They were tactical. They took out command centers, radar sites, launch pads, and terrorist camps. The very infrastructure that groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba rely on to operate. They were timed, targeted, and effective. And they were Indian-made. Because Modi's military vision is about using force, but it's about using Indian force. The entire operation was built on the foundation of Atmanirbhar Bharat, a national effort to make India self-reliant in defense. The brahmos is a joint project with Russia, yes, but much of its guidance, testing, platform integration, and manufacturing has been localized. India isn't just launching missiles. It's building them, selling them, and proving them in combat, with national pride on the line. It's also protecting itself with them. During the operation, India went on the offensive with everything they had. They activated drone jammers, the Akash missile defense system, anti-air systems, signal disruptors, and indigenous radar to protect its own aircraft and territory. More than a one-off hit. It was a real-time demonstration of modern Indian warfare.
More than one of them hit.
Multi-domain,
okay.
coordinated, domestically produced, and sharp. And all of this happened without triggering nuclear escalation. And with steps back to a ceasefire, however tenuous. That's the needle India is trying to thread in a very challenging
the strike
region.
worked.
Hit hard enough to matter, but stay just below the threshold that forces your enemy to escalate beyond control.
Again, I gotta fool us, dude.
Balance.
We know where these people
But
are.
on May 10th, India pulled it off. And that success says something about where India's headed, not just militarily, but diplomatically, economically, and psychologically. It no longer sees itself as the country that waits to be hit. It sees itself as a country that hits back fast, hits back smart, and hits back in a way that gets the world's attention, without losing control. Thanks for watching. YouTube just dropped a mind-boggling announcement. It is paying creators...
Oh man, that's crazy. Hell yeah, man. India got some new missiles. That's damn, yeah. I'm pretty scared though. All this new technology that's coming out. So, like I saw that stuff with the robots and everything. You know, that started turning against the engineers that were working on it. They just started randomly attacking. I've got these missiles coming out. Oh man. Well, not coming out. They already did come out and they were already used. They were already pre-tested and used pre-alpha. Anyways, this video's been long enough. I hope you guys make sure to hit the like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.